And welcome back. We stay on the President's address to Parliament. To help us understand the significance of the address, we have two guests in studio with us. Associate Professor Eugene Tan from the School of Law, Singapore Management University, and Dr Gillian Koh, Deputy Director of Research at the Institute of Policy Studies. Thanks, both of you, for coming in this evening.
Hi, Don.
Thank you.
I'm going to start with you, Dr Koh. I think just
Gillian
before we came on air, you said restating of themes that we have heard in the last few months. Even so, restating of familiar themes now. What were the key highlights for you?
Well, the key highlights were, first, the setting of the scene. And I think the President said that this is a more troubled world than we thought we would come to after the pandemic. Nobody's interested in sort of working together beyond us. And so we have to take care of ourselves. The second point, therefore, is that we face these difficult times, but with certain assets. And she highlighted these assets: trust and social solidarity. Third, in addition to those assets, are fiscal assets. And she highlighted that even as we talk about social reform, refreshing the social compact, has to be a sense of fiscal prudence and discipline in how we commandeer our resources and use them in order to get to a better, higher level as we come out of these difficult circumstances. So I like that. And finally, she highlighted, of course, the Forward Singapore initiative and how the 4G leaders are getting on. And this is different from the speech that she made in first session of 14th Parliament. So I think it's important because we are being given a sense of anticipation that there's going to be far more substantive reforms in the social sector, in the social space, but all with the accent of a sense of collective responsibility, back to that theme of trust and social solidarity. So that's what really came through for me.
Yes, Prof Tan, in her speech in 2020, I recall she talked about recognizing that there were larger forces at play to test our solidarity. She said back then, forces that might pull us in different directions. So that point about social cohesion, as you said, Gillian, is it stands out in her address today. She also said that the transition to the 4G leadership, that it is well underway. Why is social cohesion and unity so important right now, Prof Tan?
You know, Dawn, I think social cohesion has always been important to Singapore. We thrive by being exceptional, and we are only exceptional if people rally behind each other, people rally behind the government, and I think that's been a key ingredient. But I think when you look at what's happening geopolitically, the economic, international economic environment, I think the need for social solidarity becomes even more critical because we are being pulled from all sides, right? The rivalry between America and China is one key example. And if we think about the tasks that are ahead for Singapore and Singaporeans, the need, for fundamental shifts in our society in terms of social compact, I think that again, requires a fair amount of social cohesion, social solidarity. And thirdly, I think when you look at Singapore, we tend to get quite edgy or nervous when it comes to political transitions. And I think it's no surprise if in this final leg of the current government's term, this push, towards, strengthening the position of the fourth generation leaders, that this whole idea of social cohesion becomes even more important. I think to encapsulate it all, I think it's really about government policies working only when the people are with each other and behind the government. And so I think that's something which we'll see resonate, when Parliament debates the President address.
One of the aims, Dr. Koh, refreshing the social compacts, social cohesion, pulling together. I think the President mentioned it's natural if you do well to want to pass on what you have done well to your children, whatever resources that you have accumulated in your lifetime. And she acknowledged that trying to, I suppose, in some way fight that, it's hard to do because that's a natural tendency. When we talk about a broader and more open meritocracy. How do we reconcile a natural tendency with the need to also ensure we do have a broader and more open meritocracy?
Well, first, I like that the president was very explicit about the issue of social stratification or social divides, income, wealth divides across society. Second, this has been a decades-old fight, and the PAP government has been deeply committed to ensuring that if we don't cap the top, we should at least do as much as we can to level up the bottom. And so I think she reinforces the point in the address that there must be ways and there will be ways found in which to kind of strengthen that. We've heard before the proroguing of Parliament in the budget speech and the Committee of Supply debates that schemes like Kids Start, which were piloted to ensure that disadvantaged kids got all the enrichment and support they needed to get up to speed, right, with other kids who are just naturally resourced or just normal income families. This would be now nationalized. And I think that is one way that we'll see that being facilitated, a broader, more open meritocracy. Second, third, she emphasized that there would be ways sought to reward people with different skills and different talents. And I think that recognizing that there are wage gaps among people who work with their hands versus those who work with their hearts and those who are knowledge workers. So a lot more has to be done. And we know also that the announcement has been made that progressive wage model will be expanded and sort of nuanced so that people in different, not just sectors, but types of work will benefit. And the government's facilitating that by subsidizing the increase in wages. So that sort of help is very, very practical and recognizes that there's merit even if with people with different skills and talents.
Prof Tan, the parliamentary debate on the President's address called the motion of thanks. That's going to happen in the days to come. But, you know, officially that debate is to thank the President for the address, right? But in practice, it's also an opportunity for MPs to scrutinise and discuss the government plans, for ministers to actually provide more explanations and so on. What are you expecting to see in this debate?
Well, I think we can still expect a very robust debate. You know, if we go by how the 14th Parliament had been debating issues, so we will see the government's plans flesh out in the addenda by the different ministries, and what I would expect certainly would be MPs not just scrutinizing those policies, but also putting forth ideas as to how things could work better. For the government, the PAP backbenchers, I think it's really a chance for them, to try to reach out to Singaporeans, and persuade them, that these policies are indeed going to work and that they are for the better. Because we are looking at fundamental shifts, in our society. We talk about repurposing meritocracy, strengthening social safety nets. And I think for the opposition MPs, we shouldn't be surprised if they seek to push the envelope further, meaning to say that the government can do more. And so I think at the back of it all, even as we debate all these very important issues, I think the question that should not be far from the minds of MPs, and certainly for the government front bench, would be the whole issue of fiscal sustainability, right? So there are all these big plans, and they can only work if we are able to finance them, and that they can be ongoing policies, right? Because if we do run out of money, then we've got to pull back on those policies. I think that would be bad. So I think overall we'll see the debate will be something for Singaporeans to look forward to. But I think more importantly, for them to understand the issues and then to decide for themselves, what should be the way forward for Singapore and Singaporeans.
On these themes and these issues, there have been much discussed and much raised in the budget speech that we did together earlier this year. Now, the Forward Singapore exercise, that concludes towards the end of this year, and the report for that will come out from the middle of this year onwards. Very quickly, both of you, starting with you, Dr. Koh, what do you think we will see in that report that we have not already heard stressed across several speeches from different official figures in government so far? Very quickly, yourself first.
Goodness. Can I just say, while it's been mentioned, the anti-discrimination legislation key. Secondly, far more in terms of enabling people to get back to work, because the opposing idea has been unemployment insurance to bridge the gap while people look for a job. So what is new? What's going to happen in that regard? So I think that's key. Then the third one has something to do with Unite, the pillar called Unite. What is it about Singaporean identity, sense of social solidarity that requires a new policy or some policy reform? Is that something to do with the integration of immigrants or foreigners, since we have to, augment our population and we want to grow? We want to move up to the next S-curve of innovation. Given the difficulties in the rest of the world, we have to have foreign talent here. So what what's going to happen under that pillar called Unite?
I'll be brief. I think in the end, for me, the key question will be the how, right? So we know why we need to repurpose meritocracy. We understand, the need to strengthen our social safety nets. The key question is, how are we going to do it? How are we going to do it in a way that brings society closer together? How do we ensure that people, recognize, the imperatives for doing these things and how they play a part? So to me, that's what I would be looking for. And so I think the President's address gave us a sort of a hint, but I think really the how question is something that will intrigue me and I think it will concern Singaporeans as well.
Well, thanks for those insights. Associate Professor Eugene Tan from SMU and Dr. Gillian Koh from the IPS. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.